Good morning, everybody. We're signing in from the East Side. This is ESABA's East Side Connect for March 20th. We are spending an hour talking about immigration need to know for businesses. We've been really working on this topic since our annual meeting and really since the beginning of the year. As we learned at our annual meeting in February, that many of our Latina businesses are experiencing a steep decline, some 50 to 70% in revenue. And we know how hard that is for businesses to sustain. So we wanted to have this topic, talk a little bit about what we can do. So that'll be a little later in the show, what we can do to really connect and help businesses in our area, but also what businesses should be thinking about or need to know as basics on this topic on the legal front for themselves. So we've got some great guest stars and some good conversation to have this morning. Like I said, we will do a brief round of introductions here to just help our special guests kind of know who's in the room and help all of us know who's in the room today. And then we will proceed with a little bit of conversation with Mr. Ernest Wiafe, who is an immigration attorney and only has a few minutes to spend with us. He's got a client that he's meeting with a little later in the hour, but we're delighted to have you on the East Side, honorary East Side with us today. So let's do a round of introductions. If you can turn on your camera for this first part, that'd just be super. Come into the room with us. So you see the gallery here, and I'm going to actually open the chat so that folks can also put some of their identifying information in the chat. But let's just run around and say, like, how many of the folks on the call run an East Side business, either own or run, let's say, are owners of an East Side business. We have many owners on today. We've got a couple. We've got Chelsea, I think about you in that category. Yanni, I think about you in that category with small business owners. But those are the businesses that we've got on, it looks like. How about work with or manage or are part of an East Side business, period? You're an East Side business. So there's Noel from Mississippi Market, Kwame from True Legal, Rico Duran from LEDC, other East Side businesses in the house. Okay. All right, good. How about if you were part of an East Side nonprofit that works with businesses? Or an East Side nonprofit. Let's go East Side nonprofits. Okay, so we've got Mary Russell from Hazel Park United Church of Christ, Shatika Flowers for Family Values, Matt Anderson from the East Side Neighborhood Development Company, Rico again from LADC, work with businesses, Marsha Allen's from ESNDC, Azucena is from ESNDC. Good, we're getting there. Yeah, all right. How about if you are a consultant to businesses, work with businesses, or businesses are your basic constituents? So like ESABA, Grover Jones. Okay, we work with a lot of businesses. Businesses are our people. Ava Diaz is with Visit St. Paul. All right, good. Tim Marino's with the Dayton's Bluff Community Council, nonprofit. And it looks like you're outside, Tim. It's cold, man. Hang in there. Stay warm. Okay. Plua is from our city council member's office. Plua Yang, welcome to the show from Nelsie Yang's office. Glad to have you. And then Adriana Foreman, you're new to me. Would you tell us who you are?
Hi, I'm at East Side Neighborhood Development Corporation, Program Manager. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, cool. I have seen you, but I have not said hi. I'm glad to know you.
How you doing?
Welcome to the show. Okay. Special guest power today we've got in the house. We've got coming to talk to us a little bit, Edmundo Lijo from the city attorney's office. Hello, Edmundo. We've got Chelsea DeArmond also with Unidos to talk a little bit about what Unidos is doing. We're going to talk a little bit later in the show. Rico Duran coming at us from LADC. Really glad to have Rico as well, working with Latina businesses on the East Side and elsewhere. And Ernest Wiafe from Ernest, actually, I don't know. I think it's just your name for your law firm, right? Or
that's correct, yes.
Okay, good. Who's an attorney who works with immigration issues and is an attorney in immigration law. So we want to start with you, Ernest, to start our conversation. We are just going to just jump right in. And folks, we will have time for questions. We've got a full hour to have this conversation, but we've only got a few minutes with Ernest here. So I've asked a couple questions that I wanted him to respond to. And then if we've got a couple of questions for him after he says some things, we can ask some of those before he's got to go. When I reached out about this initially, really wanting to know a little bit more about rights and how they apply in public and private spaces, businesses are a little bit of a question mark versus residents. We've seen that there's some published cards, and we've got them as a resource on a website page that we're building. Folks have seen these cards. I shared this with Ernest. There you go. Chelsea's got one in her hand. These red cards. We've got them so you can print them. If you got red paper, they can look as pretty as Chelsea's. But wanting to talk a little bit about rights as they apply in public and private spaces and how immigration attorneys help sort that out with businesses. I asked him about resources for businesses and what kinds of things he shares or is sharing with folks that reach out to him. So we'll want to hear some about that. And then accountability and reporting. We've heard a little bit about who ICE is kind of actively working on in our neighborhoods right now. But how is that being reported, or how is the community involved in making comment about that, or how do we learn about that, and how do we get feedback about that and understand that so we know what's going on? So I just want to ask Ernest to open it up and maybe start with whichever question is most compelling to you. It's been a month since we've been kind of having this conversation, but where would you like to start, sir?
I think I can start with your first question that you sent me. What are the rights of people within their within the workplace, and also people within their homes, right? Obviously, in a workplace, anytime someone opens a business, he invites customers to come in and do business with. It's a public space, Whereas in your house, you are protected by your constitutional right to privacy. So those are the two different distinctions. For an ICE to go to a person's home, they need some sort of warrant, right? It could be a judicial warrant issued by a judge, immigration judge, or it could be a warrant that is issued by an ICE officer. How do we compare that to businesses, okay? For an ICE officer to come to your business, you are not protected by a constitutional right to privacy in a public space. So they do not need a warrant to come to a work space. So ICE officer can come to your business and, ask people for their immigration status. That is actually in the INA Immigration Nationality Act, Section 287. That gives immigration officers the legal authority to go to business and make sure that people that are working there have their legal rights to work in the United States, because immigration is a federal law, which ICE or immigration DHS have the legal mandate and the legal authority to enforce these kind of laws. So for the purpose of our audience here, if let's say an ICE officer comes to your office, come to your place of business and say, hey, can you give me the list of people that work here, and I want to make sure that they are all legal authorized to work in the United States. They are legally allowed to do so. It's called what we call the Form I-9, right? To inspect, to make sure that employers or the employer is hiring people and is complying with the federal law. So that's what we're seeing. We've heard that we've seen some ICE raids in some businesses within the Twin Cities. We've seen raids where most of the time they go, we've seen that I don't see them going to a lot of white collar businesses. They go to mostly blue collar businesses where they have factory workers and farms where they suspect that there's going to be maybe a lot of people with the proper legal documents. Case in example, I just had a client 2 weeks ago. ICE went to their business. They found out that he was here working unlawfully. He's been in the country for about 20 years. So they told him to come and check in. So we took him to ICE last week to check in. And this person was not issued a notice to appear in court. They told him to go. They will get back to him. So what are we hearing in the Twin Cities? In the Twin Cities, there hasn't been a lot of major raids here in the Twin Cities. I had a meeting with the city of some of the police chiefs in the community, and the ICE chief here in Minnesota said they haven't received any directives to conduct mass raids in Minnesota, but that can change any day. And this is what ICE is telling most of our local. But we've heard that in big cities like New York, Chicago, you're hearing more of these type of raids than what we've seen here in Minnesota. I'm not saying that in Minnesota we are immune to any ICE raids, but we haven't seen a lot of those, or they haven't been given directive to do so in our Twin Cities here.
Okay, thank you for beginning to sort that out. So it sounds like a warrant is not needed for the public space in your business. Is there a defining line inside a business between public space and private space, and what is private space inside a business versus what is public space inside a business?
So, if this is outside the context of immigration. Anytime someone operates a business, they invite people to come in to do business, right? You call it invitee, right? To come in to conduct business. Because it's a private business, but you are inviting the public to come in and conduct normal transaction of business, that ICE officer can come to your workplace, right? When they come to your site, they will typically ask to do what we call I-9 inspection. I-9 inspection. So you, the employer, legally, as you know, when you hire somebody, you have to verify that they are allowed to work here in the country legally. So what do? You give them the I-9 form. They complete those. They give you their proof of citizenship, and then you put it in the employee file.
Yeah.
So when ICE come to the workplace, he would then ask you to verify the people working here legal status. So you are legally required to comply with their request. But if you don't do that, there could be some penalty. It could be either civil or criminal penalties. But normally we see this in civil penalties for the most part.
Okay. Thank you. There's one question in the chat, and I guess I would ask folks if they've got questions that occur to them here as we're talking in the next couple of minutes here, to just drop questions in the chat. What about churches and schools? Are these public places or governed by the same kinds of rights that you just discussed?
Those are slightly different. Churches and schools, even though they are public places, they are sanctuary places, right? People go to church for a place of worship, school for education. Historically, ICE do not go to these places. As you know, we've heard the president say that they're going to be going to these places. Even though they've made those public comments, we haven't seen them going to those, execute those yet. But even those that they are arresting from these places, this is what ICE is doing. They do not enter the church or the schools, but sometimes they wait for the people outside in their parking lot, right? Yeah. If you're not in the building, your parking lot is different. That's a public place, right? The parking lot. Yep. So ICE have not been entering into the churches and schools, but if they want to apprehend someone, they will typically wait outside the building. So as the person tries to exit that building, that's when they will apprehend them. I mean, churches and schools have the right to refuse them entry into their schools or into their churches. They can refuse them right to come, because remember, there's a separation between church and state by our constitution. So that is why they try not to violate that constitutional right. So for the most part, ICE are not going to churches and schools, even though they made comments about doing so, but they use those that we've seen are case that they wait outside the church and the schools.
Okay. It looks like there's another question in the chat that the understanding is that other than I-9 visits, they would need warrants to enter private spaces like the private spaces of a building, of business. Can you clarify about that?
So,
Mary, I'm not sure I asked your question very well. I can't see it very well. Mary, you want to come on and just ask that question?
No, you asked it well. A lot of the information I've been getting from the Society of Human Resource Management and some other legal firms make a differentiation between an I-9 visit, which of course they don't need a warrant for, and another type of, like, if you call it raid or visit. So, and that they would need, they could come into, if you have a public lobby, yes, but areas that are marked private, that they actually need a judicial warrant. Is that correct?
that is correct, right? So, like I said, they will come there for I-9 inspection. But let's say if there is a judicial warrant to arrest someone for removal, yes, they will have to show that in order to execute that warrant. Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Thanks for that question too, Mary. Mr. Wiafe, I'm not sure how much time you have left. I know that are you getting close to done with us?
Yeah, I have 11:30, so I mean I can, I have an appointment at 11:30, so I think I have some few more minutes.
Perfect. Wonderful. So I also wanted to just ask, like, given what you have said here, are there good resources you think to direct businesses to so they can learn what rights they have? Like, as Mary pointed out, there may be some things that they need to know about private spaces inside for visits that are not just routine I-9 visits, say, but that are that require a warrant. Are there resources that help people identify which warrant is which and which one they need to honor in which given situation? Thoughts about that?
When you get the warrants, the judicial warrant is the most important thing, right? Any other warrants, it doesn't hold any weight, Look for who signed it. If it says judge, that is when you have to respect it. Because ICE officers can actually create their own warrant and then sign it. It will say immigration officer or ICE agent. Those do not hold any legal weight. But if it says a judge, you have to see the signature line and see whether it says Judge XYZ. That is what holds weight in terms of what we do here. But in terms of ICE officer warrant, an ICE officer can just leave the office, issue a warrant. If they present that to you, you can ignore it. But if it's signed by a judge, you should. But in terms of organizations, obviously, like there is a lot of local immigration lawyers in town. The first one is immigration. It's called AILA, American Immigration Lawyers Association. That is the biggest immigration lawyers association in the country. American Immigration Lawyers Association, AILA. And then obviously there's ACLU. There is Immigrant Law Center. And then also local lawyers here. So I think some of the best places to get this is just go to AILA website, American Immigration Lawyers Association. It's called AILA, AILA.
Got it.
Yeah, go to their website and then you can see some of these resources on their website. If not too, just reach out to some of the local attorneys here. And we are putting a lot of some of these Know Your Rights cards together for individuals and also for employers. And most of these lawyers are taking care of those these days.
Terrific. So one of the things that we're working on producing, I'll just share real quick here. We can look at it a little bit later. ESABA on our website is creating an immigration need to know page. So we'll want to link up to AILA and have a space here for those resources. The printable immigrant legal resources cards are right here that folks want to have a way to kind of print those out. And my understanding is that that's a resource that you can give to someone anytime. And informing people of their rights is something you can always do. People should know these and read these and have some sense of those. But we'll want to add AILA, I think, here as one of the primary resources that we're working on. We'll also put a link to, our conversation today will be right here as well if people want to kind of get inside of how we're talking about this and what we knew in this space. So we'll come back to that in just a second. I wanted to ask you one other question before we move the conversation and we lose your time. Just to say, are there ways around accountability? What are the ways that we come to understand? ICE has high-level officials here that are telling us particular that mention the things that you just mentioned. We're only picking up folks with violations or folks with criminal records. We're hearing other things in our community. How is the community working on just informing the conversation, or how do you hear about like what's really going on, and how do we respond?
Okay, so I want to clarify certain things here. So there's a lot of misinformation going on in the community, right? Fear mongering, also even in the media. I'll be honest with you. But I'm doing a lot of these community town hall meetings and engagements almost every weekend. We got something with either churches, nonprofit organizations. We're doing a lot of these, The most important thing is to let people know that they have rights in this country, okay? Even as an immigrant or as undocumented, you have a right in the country to, you are protected by the Constitution for the most part. What I usually tell people is this. As of now, these are the orders we've gotten from Washington. They are going after people with criminal records. They are also going after people who have had removal orders issued by a judge and who have come to the southern border again. And they are also looking for people who they see as national security threat to this country. The other one is a vague one, to be frank with you, because if you've heard about a green card holder in Columbia University in New York, who was recently detained by ICE, even though he is a permanent resident of the United States. Okay. So people should know one thing. If someone presents themselves as an ICE officer, ask to see their ID. If they try to apprehend you or anything, sometimes they will just say, I'm from ICE. You ask to see the ID. Make sure you always have your phone. If anything, just contact immediate family members or friends right away. Let them know, hey, this is what's happening. I've been stopped by ICE here. This is the plate number. This is what they're saying. Because once someone is detained, as lawyers, as long as we know the person's now we can call ICE, and then there's online ICE locator online that you can actually search a person who's been detained by ICE to see where the person is being held. Okay.
Super helpful. That is very helpful information, I think, for our community to know, or to know, period.
Yeah. And yes, definitely, and then as long as we know the person's alien number, we can actually look it up. And look, or we can even call the local ICE, and you can call the local ICE office in Bloomington. It's just local ICE office. Their number, you can call them, say, hey, I'm a fan of this person. I understand that he was detained. Where is he? I know that in Minnesota, there are a few jails that have contract with ICE to hold people, right? Most of the detainees. There's one in Sherburne County, Elk River. And then there's one in Candy, Ohio jail, which is about an hour and a half away. These are the two main places in the Twin Cities that actually hold people for ICE.
Great. Thank you for that. We're gonna thank you for your time. Is there anything else that you are kind of aware of right now that is helpful in conversations like this, especially for business owners and folks that work with businesses that are concerned about this, that you would share with us in parting?
I'm saying for businesses, there's nothing to worry about. This is a country that is governed by laws. And now we're seeing things that are slightly different, unprecedented. As an immigration lawyer, some of these things I'm seeing is like back in the 1960s, things that you thought as a country we've moved forward from, right? So, make sure that even if an ICE officer or immigration comes to your workplace, you are an American citizen or you're a green card. You have the right to question them. You don't have to just conform to everything that they say, right? If they wanna do I-9 search inspection, that's legally okay to do that. Anything else, just tell them that, you're going to have to reach out to your lawyer. And then, you can just don't give more than what is necessary at this point.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
If there are additional questions or questions come up that we think that would be best addressed by Mr. Wiafe, I hope it's okay with you if we surface any questions, share them with you. You were a very prompt response, and I appreciate the referral. It was Kwame Osafo-Addo from True Legal that referred us to you to talk this through. So thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you. And then let me know the next meeting if I can plan ahead of time, and then maybe we can have a longer discussion or presentation here.
Completely appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. No, thank you, guys.
Time, sir.
All right, take care.
Okay, who else are we losing? We're losing Plua. Okay, goodbye, Plua. All right, so that was a good start, everybody. Felt like to me. If you have questions that are surfacing right now, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I want to turn to Edmundo Lijo from the City Attorney's Office and just ask about your sense, what you're hearing, and things that you suggest businesses do to prepare. So that I-9 search conversation is a really interesting one. The how do you tell the difference between particular warrants is interesting. From the City Attorney's Office and or your legal perspective, Edmundo, can you talk to us a little bit about that preparation step or what businesses should be doing so that they are feeling like they understand what's going on and they're ready?
Sure. But maybe before I jump into the questions, why don't I give you a little background on me and the office and what we do here at the City Attorney's Office. I'm actually an attorney in the Civil Division, and I run the Immigrant and Refugee Program for the city. The Immigrant Refugee Program was created in 2019 during the first Trump administration. And our mission is to foster and promote a citywide culture that understands and values the benefits, including economic benefits, that all members of our society receive from St. Paul's immigrant and refugee communities, and that creates opportunities for all to contribute and belong. So within that mission, we do a lot of different things. We have a citizenship program where we help people who want to apply for U.S. citizenship, because there are a lot of economic benefits to a city. There's a lot when people naturalize. There are a lot of cultural and civic benefits. People can vote, they can run for public office, they can sit on a jury. All these things really help to build a solid, community and a stable community. In addition, I am the legal advisor to the city on anything to do with immigration. So we've actually been talking quite a bit about all the issues that you've mentioned. And we've also been working to tell people and let people know about our separation ordinance, which is very important in the context of what's happening today. A little bit about our separation ordinance.
Yes, that's a great place to start.
Our separation ordinance, let's see here, was adopted in April of 2004. And it basically states that no city employee enforces federal immigration policy, and city employees will never ask for immigration documentation or status in exchange for city services or benefits. And that's why it's called a separation ordinance, because we are charged with enforcing state law and city ordinances. We do not enforce federal law, and specifically federal immigration law. And there's a couple of really good reasons for that, have nothing to do with necessarily with immigration. First of all, St. Paul is a welcoming city, and we have a very long and proud tradition of welcoming immigrants and refugees to our city. And the separation ordinance was passed because it's really an issue of public safety and trust. Effective law enforcement requires that all community members trust our city workers, they trust our police, they trust our fire department. So, we don't ask about immigration status. Law enforcement officers rely on residents to provide information to prevent and solve crimes. This is especially true in immigrant communities who are maybe really reluctant to engage with law enforcement due to potential immigration consequences or the perception of racial and ethnic profiling. And if communities stop talking to our police, if witnesses stop coming forward, if victims of crime stop coming forward, makes it much more difficult to not only solve crimes, but also prevent crime. So the main purpose of the separation ordinance is that we want people to trust our police, to trust our 911 first responders, so that people come forward and talk to us and feel safe and secure in speaking with us.
Makes
Now,
sense.
the other thing that goes hand in hand with the reason we do the separation ordinance is the authority. Immigration enforcement is a function exclusively within the authority of the federal government. The 10th Amendment to the United States provides that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited to it are reserved by the states. So that means anything that the federal government hasn't been given, the states retain that power. Cities, as political subdivisions of the state, also have those rights. And that provision of the Constitution also prohibits the federal government from co-opting or using city or state resources and employees to enforce federal law. It's called commandeering. So it's called the anti-commandeering doctrine. The federal government can't commandeer our personnel, our resources to enforce federal law, especially when the federal government isn't reimbursing the state or the city for that expense.
Makes sense.
It also takes away the resources we have to promote public safety, to solve crimes, and puts it into solving federal issues, which again makes it harder for us to promote community safety within our own community. So those are the reasons we have the separation ordinance. A little bit about what we've been working with at the city. We also have been involved in getting out the message to the public that we still aren't enforcing our separation ordinance. We're still not going to be enforcing federal immigration law, and that people should not be afraid to come forward and talk to the police. So that's been our main objective with the public in these last few months. But we've also been preparing, because what happens if ICE shows up at one of our libraries or one of our rec centers or parks? We also, like a business, have spaces that are open to the public, and the federal government has the authority to enforce federal immigration law. We can't prevent them. That's part of the separation ordinance. Although we don't participate in enforcing, we also can't interfere with that enforcement. We can't prevent the feds from coming somewhere and arresting someone or executing a warrant. So we have looked at within our own facilities how we can determine when ICE can come in and when we can say, no, this is not somewhere you can come into. So it's kind of an analysis that I think every business needs to go through. I as an attorney for the city, can't give businesses legal advice. You really need to talk to your own attorney. And this is a little bit less of an immigration question and more just of a business operation kind of Fourth Amendment, search and seizure question. So I think what we've done at the city is we've done an inventory of our locations and tried to determine what is a public space and what is a private space. Because ICE, any federal law enforcement, any law enforcement agency has the authority to come into a public space, and they can arrest people in a public space. They can search in a public space. However, if we're talking about a private space, ICE cannot come in and just start looking around and searching and trying to arrest someone. They have to have what's called a judicial warrant. And we've talked a little bit, you all heard from the attorney previous, a little bit about a judicial warrant versus an administrative warrant. And I did put in the chat a resource. Let me see if I can pull it up here real quick. A resource from Workplace Justice Lab, which is a joint project of Rutgers University School of Management and Labor Relations and Northwestern. And that resource does a really good job of explaining the difference between a judicial warrant and an administrative warrant. I think you all will find that pretty helpful. It's WJL subpoena warrant brief labor
I see
agency.
it. I can't get it to
open
open for me at the moment. No, it's having me sign into the city of St. Paul to actually get it done.
Okay. So let's
it's because it's coming from you, Edmundo. It's coming from your link.
Right. Right. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, we will get that, folks. We will get that link. If it's a public link,
make sure you guys can get it. Yeah,
because figuring that out seems to be key, right? For understanding what jurisdiction the person you're talking to might have. That, and as Ernest mentioned, Mr. Wiafe mentioned, like whether or not you're talking to somebody who has legitimate ID. Are they actually an ICE agent?
Right.
Let's see to ask to see someone's ID. That's an interesting point too. Go ahead, Edmundo. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Sure. So I would take a look at this document. It lays out, and it gives you examples of a judicial warrant. Basically, a judicial warrant is going to say, U.S. Federal District Court at the top. It's going to have a signature by a judge. It's going to really outline where they can search, what they're looking for. The administrative warrant is going to be signed by, as Ernest discussed, by an immigration official or some type of administrative official who's not a judge. And it's going to usually have a little form number at the bottom. It's basically an immigration form saying they have the right to arrest somebody. It's a warrant for someone's arrest. And with that warrant, they can't go into a private space. But like I said, I can't give legal advice. This is just general kind of discussion about the legal issues. But you really need to have go through this with an attorney, your business's attorney, and maybe even have them do what we call a Fourth Amendment audit, which is an audit of your space. And you look at, what can we reasonably consider a private space? What is a public space? Because even in a business, not all spaces are public. I mean, you have employee, lunchrooms, you have locker rooms, maybe you have spaces that are, not open to the public, and you really should go through and really talk to your attorney and see if they think you can say, someone can't enter this space without a warrant. I mean, that's a decision, and you should try to make that ahead of time so that you're prepared if someone shows up. Also, all your rights apply under the Bill of Rights. People have the right to remain silent. They have the right to have an attorney with them when they're being questioned. All those rights apply to business owners as well. So really go through and try to, get an assessment done of your rights. The other thing I really want to touch on is this whole idea of the I-9s. I know all businesses have to have I-9s for each employee that works for them and establishes that the employee is authorized to work in the United States. Last Trump administration, this was an area that was increased the number of I-9 audits across businesses as they were trying to uncover folks who are working without authorization and trying to find undocumented folks. They increased I-9s. I think it's really important that businesses go through and review their I-9s, possibly with their attorney, do an internal audit to see if their I-9s are all up to snuff and that everything is as good as it can be. And the documents are filled out properly, that they have the correct documents attached to the I-9. So really, I would strongly recommend that businesses go through and do their own I-9 audits beforehand so that they feel prepared, because the fines on the I-9s are pretty steep. For first-time violations, the fees are pretty steep. I think they're like $287 up to $2,879 for the first violation. They go up, and in some of the violations, if this is your third or or more violation where they've caught an employer, you're looking over $27,000 for each violation. So this could easily, shut down a small business if you're not careful. I mean, they will look at the size of the business, whether, there's a good faith effort to complete the I-9s, whether there was, first time offense. They'll take all those things into consideration, but the fines can be pretty steep. And I think it is worth every business's effort to go in and review your I-9s, make sure they're up to speed, and consult with your legal counsel to review those I-9s and get up to speed.
Yep, this makes sense. And so two things that we would like to just help people navigate to would be this kind of advice. And Kwame, who works for True Legal, is a lawyer member of ESABA, maybe, like if folks do not have a lawyer that they want to work with, like, this is a shameless plug for Kwame, I guess. It sounds like all small businesses should go ahead and contact their attorney and talk about a Fourth Amendment audit and an I-9 review. And Kwame, if you had a business pick up the phone and call you and wanted to do that, is that pretty standard for a firm like yours?
Not for the I-9 review, because it pertains a little bit more to the immigration side of things. So I think an immigration lawyer will be better for that particular issue.
Okay, really interesting. So that's maybe the kind of thing we need to be looking around, folks, inside our network, and who are our good points of access on the east side that could help us. It could help people if they want to kind of do what Edmundo is suggesting here. Edmundo, like other resources that you feel like if you call your lawyer and they're like, well, yeah, I can help you with this part of it. Kwame, the sorting out Fourth Amendment audit, which space is public, which space is private, that the kind of thing that works pretty well for you?
No, again, I would defer that again to immigration.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna need some immigration attorneys in our network, people. Yeah, no, totally making sense. We're gonna shift the conversation just a little bit. Want to ask Chelsea to talk. Thank you, Edmundo. Are there? Sorry, Edmundo. Yeah, go ahead.
What you asked about resources. There is one other resource which I can't seem to be able to put in the chat either. But I, as a city attorney, I don't endorse specific lawyers or specific law firms. So this in no ways is an endorsement of this law firm or saying this is the firm you should go with. We can't do that. We don't do that. Yep. But I do. But Ferguson Byron, well-known firm in Minneapolis, put together a webinar for employers on things that the employers should be doing to prepare for I-9 audits, for having ICE show up at your workplace. It's a good webinar, has a lot of good information, and I'm happy to share that. Paris, I will send a link to that webinar. People can watch it. The other document I sent over from Workplace Justice Lab, I think they're good resources to kind of give folks some idea of what they need to look for and what they're looking at, and things that they should be discussing with their private counsel to kind of get some assistance and guidance on how to go forward. That's great. And maybe it is, Kwame, that people's attorney, like I asked you and you took me to Ernest right away. Like maybe there are attorneys in your network who can help with particular issues if you don't know how to help sort them. Yes, thank you. So it sounds like a couple of resources, Edmundo, that you and I'll follow up on for sure. Thank you for that. Okay, two more points that we're going to circle around here, and then we're going to open up for questions in just a couple minutes here beyond. But Matt had a question that he dropped in the chat. What's an individual's right not to answer questions from ICE? Can they still be detained? I think that's an interesting question. Edmundo, thoughts about that? Or Kwame, thoughts about that? Individuals can, definitely be detained. Everyone has a right to remain silent. You don't have to answer questions. And yes, people can be detained, and and if they're questioning you and you decide I'm going to answer some of these questions, or answer the questions, and you can ask them, am I detained? Am I free to go? I mean, those are fair questions to ask. But yes, if an ICE officer has reason to believe someone is undocumented or is in violation of their immigration status, yes, they can be detained and arrested by the ICE officer. And another question that I know Ernest talked about was, how the message we're getting from ICE, at least locally, that they're just going after criminals or going after people who have immigration violations. But there's also a lot going on nationwide and in other jurisdictions, and even here, this is happening. No one is off the table. That's a quote by Holman, the director of ICE. If they come into a location, they find someone who's undocumented, they're gonna arrest them and put them into removal proceedings. I don't want to cause fear or increase levels of anxiety for anybody in our community, but I think we have to be realistic too. I think people need to prepare their families. They need to go through and do family planning, emergency planning in the event a family member ends up in removal proceedings or is deported from the United States. There are things that they can do to prepare their family, just kind of same thing they would do in preparing for the death of someone. Your wills, your mortgages, your taking care of knowing where all the business documents are, having everybody's documents, having passports, birth certificates, marriage certificates, all those important documents in one place. We are going to have our legal service providers provide trainings for folks over the next few months for people to be able to come in and talk about how they prepare their family in the event of a removal.
Okay, so we'll want to be connected to some of those trainings.
I'll actually advise you guys. I'll let you guys know when those trainings are.
And shifting toward training, that's something that Unidos and Chelsea have been doing. Let's take a minute right there, Chelsea.
Yeah, we as the attorneys have said on this call, in the Twin Cities, we haven't been experiencing large raids yet, but we are getting ready. We have time, and since we're not quite experiencing it yet, we have time to make the plans that the attorneys have advised, and also to get our communities ready. And so at Unidos, we've been doing some raid response trainings, and it's just a way to help people respond when there is a raid happening in the community. We have a hotline. I put it in the chat here. That will, if people who are signed up in the network can call this hotline, and then whoever is in the area can just be present. The training is about how to legally record what's happening, and we don't quite know like what we can do in these circumstances, but we can be present and we can record what's happening. We can get information from the ICE officers. We can understand how they're operating so that we can be better prepared as a community and legally if there's a case to be made in defense of people who are being detained and deported. And so the raid response training goes into a lot of detail about how to do that well. And I don't know if you all have heard of the SALUTE acronym. This is we don't quite have time to go through the whole thing, but the idea is to be really specific, because there is a lot of fear out there and there's a lot of fear mongering, and that hurts businesses. I'm sure some of you know it hurts, especially immigrant owned businesses. And so we don't want to feed into that. And so a big part of reporting these incidents is being very specific and clear, and helping people respond in an orderly way. So there's the acronym, I'll just go through it really quickly, is the S stands for size and strength. Just pay attention to how many offices are there? How many vehicles do they have? Was it ICE alone, or were they working with other agencies? The A stands for actions and activity. What are they doing? Are they just like hanging out? Are they eating lunch? Like, these are people who it's their job, and they might be in the community just because they're doing something else. It might not even be part of some sort of official action. So pay attention to what they're doing. Are they picking somebody up? Are they entering a business because they're using the services or because they're rating it? And there's a difference. L stands for locations and directions. Where are they right now? What direction does it seem they're heading? And be very specific. Like, it doesn't help to say, oh, there's an ice raid happening in Dayton's Bluff. What do we do with that information? That just freaks everybody out. But if they're on the corner of 7th and Hope or something, that's a lot more actionable. Uniforms and clothing. How are they wearing vests? Are they clearly identified? T is time and date, the exact day and time. And then E is equipment and weapons. What sort of vehicles do they have? Do they have a K9 unit? Are they armed? Do they have body armor? That kind of information also gives us a lot of clues about what sort of action they're involved in. So, yes.
You had done a training recently on the East Side. About how many people came to the one at Cesar Chavez over the weekend?
We had about 150 people.
Okay.
And so those people are signed up for this hotline. And if there is a raid happening in our community, then people who attended the training will respond and be present. And just our presence at these raids, we're not trying to engage or interfere at all with what's happening. We do want to record it, and we do want to be present because that sends a message in itself saying, these are members of our community. This business is important to us. We care about what's happening here, what's unfolding here, and we're paying attention.
Yes.
So even just our presence sends that kind of a message that this isn't happening in the dark. It's happening in our community, and these are members of our community that we all care about.
Do you have any other trainings planned at the moment?
Yes, we are doing ongoing raid response trainings and know your rights trainings.
Great.
And yeah, it's actually great that so many orgs are doing it. There's a lot of opportunity. And since we aren't experiencing raids at the moment, it's a great chance to just get ready and make the plans that you need to make for your businesses and your families. And as communities, how can we show up for each other in these circumstances?
Thank you. Would love to have those on the community calendar, on ESABA's community calendar, so that we can kind of draw some light there. We lost LEDC and Rico Duran, but I want to show you one other thing as we are getting ready to sign off. And then if folks want to stay and continue to have some conversation, we can have some more conversation for sure. I just want to honor your time. You know, usually you guys like Eastside Connect, like we have 15 to 20 minutes of presentation. And then there's time to just relax and talk to each other. We've really packed it in here, folks. So this is a good conversation that we need to have, and we need to continue. We need to continue as well. But I can certainly hang out and talk with anyone who has further questions or would like to just say, like, why aren't we talking about this? Or this is another thing that's on my mind. We had talked a little bit at our meeting for our annual meeting about ways that we could respond and things that we could do to stay connected, especially with our Latina businesses right now. So can you see my screen that's got the immigration need to know up? Yeah, okay, great. So the other thing that ESABA has done is just turned our membership directory into a search tool that you can use to find Latino and Latina businesses in our network. So these are the 11 Latina owned businesses in ESABA's membership. This is not that many, right? But this is one place that you can start to look for, like, who are the folks that are already in our network. These are the businesses that may be experiencing a loss of revenue right now because our community is scared. So, you know, how do we work on positioning ourselves to really help support if we're not feeling as scared, or if we have money that we would like to move to help our businesses survive? So this is one way. There are two search categories. You can type in the word Latino or Latina directly in the keyword search, or you can actually select it as a category. So there are two ways to kind of find businesses right now here on ESABA's membership page. But what I wanted to hear from LEDC was how we actually, if they have a way that you can search in their membership for East Side businesses that are members of LEDC, because it's going to be many more than this. But they are a statewide organization, so like figuring out. But I'll connect with Rico to see if there's some ways that we could do that efficiently. Edmundo had also mentioned to me that the city of Minneapolis did a show of solidarity of Shop in Our Community Day on Lake Street, where there are lots of our Latina businesses, and that the city of St. Paul might figure something like that out. I'm not holding him and the mayor to it. But there's some interest in this kind of thing that is right in the wheelhouse of a marketing organization like ESABA. We're going to pivot some of our work. So in April, we're going to have our coffee break at El Guanaco Bakery and Cafe, which is right on 7th Street. And Ava, a new board member for ESABA, and I are going to host it. So we'll invite you to come to our Latina businesses as we are working on our own ESABA programming to really help kind of bring some of that gusto for spending in our neighborhood, for shopping local, to some places using our ESABA events. But it's got to be more than one time a month with ESABA, and it's got to be more than one day ever, like the city of Minneapolis. We have to figure out how we sustain some outreach to our businesses right now. So if there's a taqueria that you love, or a mercado that you love, or business close to you that you've never been into, like now is the time to take $5 and go figure out if you can make a new connection and find a new favorite. William, I bug him all the time about his favorite pupuseria and his favorite taqueria, two of which on 7th Street, where, you know, we meet for lunch when we meet for lunch. So, right, like it's time to be in the community in ways that help out in that way. Let's open it up. If you want to stick around and talk, or if you've got parting ideas or have an idea about ways that we should be showing up, the floor is open. What do folks think? Mommy had to go. How was this, y'all? Kind of like what you expected today? Yeah? Get something interesting out of this? Let's do one-word check-in, one-word check-out. One-word check-out on today's meeting. How was this? We're going to run the Zoom. I'm just going to ask you to have a word in mind. If you're still on the call in 1 minute, we're going to do one-word check-out on this. How was this call? Let's go. We're going to start with ESABA board members. I see Shatika Flowers. How was this in one word?
Curious. Provoking
Nice.
thought. Thank you.
Nice. Let's go to Ava, ESABA board member.
Insightful.
Thank you. We lost William, the president of ESABA's board. Okay, we're coming over to Edmundo. You're the next one on my screen. How was today? Oh, you got to unmute. Still have to unmute. That's more than one word, man. I can tell it's more than one word.
Excited to be here.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Adriana. Formative. Thank you. How about Chelsea?
I feel community.
Fantastic. How about Grover?
Adriana stole my word. Informative.
Nice. How about Mary?
I would agree with informative, and I would add affirming.
Nice. Okay, cool. Now we've got this like adding a word to someone else's word trend. Yanni?
I don't think I can do it in one word, but it's echoing of the Native American Removal Act for me, and just very stigmatizing to be in this situation.
Thanks, Yanni. We're speaking truth. How about Kamari?
Essential.
Essential. How about Noel?
Shareable. I'm going to be sharing this with my other teammates at my business here.
Nice, Mississippi Market. Thank you. And we hope that this resource page, so you're all going to get a link to this resource page. Like, let us know if this is helpful or what else you need to know here. How about Marcia?
I'm sad, but I'm informative. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia. How about Azucena? Azucena's there with Darlene. I see Darlene. Darlene, you want to chime in?
I just say democracy.
All right, bring it. How about Laura Kramer? Laura, welcome from Health Partners.
Resourceful for those that I can share this with.
Terrific. Again, help us make it as useful a tool as possible. Azucena, are you back?
Yes, I'm here.
How about one word on how today was?
Informative.
Thank you. Okay, so my word is not alone. It's kind of a combo word, but this is what the network is about for me. We get to face these things. We get to try to leverage all of this goodwill and good energy from these people. These are our allies that want to know and are trying to do something, and we are not alone. Okay, thank you for your time, everybody. If you need to sign off now, go ahead. If you want to stick around, I'll stop recording. We can talk about anything you want. We will see you on the east side, and we'll be seeing you tomorrow for a fish fry if you want to come over to the Legion.
Oh, go ahead.
4:30 to 7 for a fish fry tomorrow, and then we'll see you in April at El Guanaco.
Hey, Paris.